Professor Reich, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee. With your permission, I will simply provide my testimony and submit it to the committee. Also, several charts that I think the committee might find very useful. Let me just say, and I'm going to summarize very quickly, even before the pandemic, America had the widest inequalities of income and wealth we've had in a century, and wider than any other developed nation. The median wage in the United States has barely budged for 40 years when you adjust for inflation, even though the economy of the United States is almost 3 times larger. And more than half Americans earn so little that they have to live paycheck to paycheck. Now, this is something new in the history of at least post-World War II America. We've never seen the degree of inequality we're now experiencing. Increasingly, the economy's gains have gone to the top. The richest 1/10 of 1%, Mr. Chairman, as you said, I want to just underscore this. The richest 1/10 of 1% has almost as much wealth as the bottom 90% put together. And again, the compensation packages of the top executives of big companies, CEOs, have soared from an average of 20 times that of the typical worker 40 years ago, or 60 times when I was labor secretary, to 320 times today. And, you know, the pandemic has just made all of this much more stark. America's 660 billionaires have together become $1.3 trillion richer. This would be enough, by the way, this $1.3 trillion that they have gained during the past year would be enough for them to give every American a $3,900 check and still be as rich as they were before the pandemic. The American Rescue Plan, just enacted, is helpful in this regard, but I think it's very important for this committee to look at the underlying structure of power. Power is a word that we don't use very often when we talk about the economy, but there has been a huge shift in power over the last 40 years, a shift toward very large corporations, and Senator Graham is absolutely right. There has got to be much more emphasis on fighting monopolies, and it's monopolies both in terms of big high-tech companies, also monopolies in terms of high finance, big pharma. I mean, you go around this country today and you see more concentration, more economic concentration than we've seen at any time in the last 60 years. And also that economic concentration translates into political power. We've got a severely imbalanced political economy. We have fewer than 7% of our workers are in unions today. 50 years ago, over a third of workers in the private sector were unionized. 50 years ago, giant corporations didn't have the power to suppress prevailing wages. They didn't have platoons of Washington lobbyists, which they have today. Another very important indication of what's happening and what's happened is that before the 1980s, the main driver of profits and the stock market was economic growth. But research has shown, and I include some of that research in my testimony, that since the late 1980s, the major means by which corporations have increased profits and stock prices has been by keeping payroll down. And that has hurt the working class. I mean, the working class in this country has taken it on the chin. The working class needs to understand that this is about, there's not a market someplace in the atmosphere, in nature. I mean, the market is a human creation, and what has happened as power has shifted dramatically toward big corporations and against workers because they don't have unions to represent them. You have a change in the structure of the market, a dramatic change. To rebalance the economy, it is necessary to provide more vigorous use of antitrust, substantially higher taxes on growing accumulations of income and wealth at the top, stronger labor protections to enable workers to join together to gain higher wages and benefits, and also greater restrictions on the use of private and corporate wealth to influence political decisions. I have much more to say, but I just want to, and I will eagerly await your questions, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee.
Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. Our second witness is Sarah Anderson, a Director of Global Economy Project at the